The Heed the Call podcast. Just wants to go to sleep. Why can't I sleep?
It's fair. It's a fair request. Welcome to Heed the Call, the Week 14 preview. Dan Hanzus here with the Cess Dog. Mark, how are your sleeping habits, by the way?
Well, you know, it's hard to buck the narrative that no matter what I say or respond to this question, people will just assume that I don't sleep well. I don't, but I actually did a study, or I looked at it, and like there are people who sleep for like a block of time, and then they're up for a block of time, and then they fall asleep for a block of time. The problem is that the second block of time often conflicts with when we're doing shows or are supposed to do shows. So that's, you know, I blame the show for my lack of sleep on some level.
I got you.
I don't know why I just went down that thread, but it's an explanation.
I hear that. And well, I hope you continue down this journey of slumber and make positive strides as we move forward. Listen, just want to say a quick shout out before we bring in Mike and Jourdan and get into all the games to the listeners, because it is that time of year. 'Tis the season when Spotify drops its top podcasts and then everyone shares them. And you know, a common thread was, hey, you guys have only been on the air for 4 months with Heed the Call, and here you are. You're either our number one or you're our number two, or there's a combination of podcasts that we've been on, Mark, that we're 1-2, leave it at that. And that is a very cool thing. So thank you to everybody for your support. That is awesome. Yeah, because I thought, Mark, when we did this, we launched Heed the Call, we felt confident, right, that there would be migration and people would give us a shot. But then to see the proof in the pudding is awesome. So thank you to everybody. Yeah,
it's been an interesting experiment. It's a grassroots movement on many levels, not unlike the Contras down, the Sandinistas down in Central America back in the day. So that's what we are. And like to be in the, up where we are, like, it speaks to the fact, and we like to sometimes jab at the listeners, but they deserve a ton of credit for their loyalty. And without them, we'd be an echo chamber talking to no one, just ourselves, you and me.
Yes, and a nice little Easter egg there that if we weren't Heed the Call, the backup or the number 2 choice for our show was the Sandinistas with Z at the end, but we ended up going with.
That's right.
Heed the Call. Yeah. All right. Without further ado, so thank you to everybody. Let's welcome in 2 people that are also vital in us having this success that we've had since the launch of Heed the Call. It is the great Jourdan Rodrigue and Michael-Shawn Dugar of The Athletic, our regular Thursday contributors with a Z. What's up, Mike?
Mark will be maybe happy to know I pulled an all-nighter to get home from New York over the weekend. So,
brothers in
sleep,
arms,
right?
Yep, absolutely.
Jourdan, how are you?
I'm good, Mark. I have a sleep podcast for you, but you do run the risk of not really knowing what happens in the middle of the podcast because it puts you to sleep and perhaps some sort of mind control taking place. So that's the risk
Mark's
you could
language.
run.
Yeah, that sounds up my alley.
But you will sleep. So.
Okay. Share it with me.
I am very interested in that. Hey, by the way, Mike, you were in New York for Jets Seahawks last week. You did text on the weekend about Where's Joe's Pizza. I did my best. I connected with my brother, Kevin Danger Hanzus, Brooklyn native, and I gave you a couple different locations. Did you find your way to Joe's? Did you try the best pizza in New York?
I didn't. I passed out. I traveled for 12 hours on Saturday. So by the time I got to my hotel, like I sat down and I was just full dad mode. Just started snoring. Right, just
Did you
sitting
fall
up
asleep
at
sitting
the
up?
desk.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the desk, not even in the hotel. Like I sat down and then I just I couldn't even move. And I woke up at like 5 a.m. and my sleep schedule was thrown off for the rest of the day. I had some like pizza from this like street dude right next to my hotel on Sunday night, which was I think
street
it's New York
dude
style
selling
the, like,
pizza.
Is it the
Mike? What'd you get yourself into?
Are you okay?
It was fine. It was like street food in New York. Is that not like a thing?
No. Well, yes, there is. There's like halal food and hot dogs famously and D's Nuts. But I don't, as someone who lived in New York City and several of the boroughs, I don't ever remember seeing a street vendor selling pizza and I'm a little nervous about like where the ingredients came from, what this is. Now I've been in LA now for several years, over a decade and a half, but maybe now there are pop-up street corner
Times are changing,
pizzas.
man.
Yeah, there was tons of them. That's interesting. Yeah,
They are
there's
trying to
like
control the
dudes
rat
on the corner
population over
selling
there.
pizza.
So, hey,
All right.
Mark, I wanted to fact check you really quick, if you don't mind.
Uh-oh.
Well, you'll mind, but yes, I was doom texting you guys over the weekend. If we're talking about weekends,
Yeah.
it rather had much more to do with my state of physical being at that moment, and very little to do with the Rams. So.
Well, yes. So this was in reference to me suggesting that you were going a little dark on the Rams situation early in the game there. And then I left, and I spent a day kind of concerned, like, will Jourdan be annoyed that I mentioned that at all? But I did mention that towards the end of that game, you came around very fair and balanced in your response to the Rams.
Well, I
performance.
had electrolytes in my body at that point. So
Yeah, you were in tough physical shape based on reports. So.
Electrolyte, one of the great REM gems of the 90s. All right.
Ding.
Welcome to the Sandinistas podcast. Let's get into it. Week 14. A reminder, we have 6 teams on bye. Is this it? I think this might be the last bye week.
Yep.
So Denver, Indianapolis, New England, Washington, Baltimore, Houston, all have the week off, and I'm sure they are relieved. I mean, getting the week 14 by that stuff, you got to grind through 13 weeks after training camp before you get a bye, and half these teams, half the roster is obviously near death at this point. So I'm sure they are enjoying their best life, and now we will dig into the other teams playing. Let's get into it as we always do. And by the way, last program note. Need some more coffee. Last program note is that we will be again live on Thursday night, the TNF recap of the game of the week, Lions-Packers. Please check in on that. And I also would like to jump on over on the Patreon. There is a weekly chat for the primetime games. And I kind of did like the bad dad thing. A couple weeks ago, I said I would be in the live chat for one of the games, and then I completely forgot about it. So it was like the dad who says, "Son, I'll be at your game," and then the kid comes up with the bases loaded in the last inning, and he looks at the bleacher spot, and it's just empty. I promise I'll be there, and I'm going to interface with our fine fans. That's a promise, son. All right, let's get into it.
I will promise nothing, which is a strong way to handle your own evening.
Very nice. Primetime games. Like we said, it's not the best week of games, which sometimes leads to the best football game, so don't count it out. But the primetime games are good. Thursday, absolute banger. Sunday Night Football, where we're starting here, the Los Angeles Chargers, number 9 in the Heed the Call power rankings, the power rankings of record, travel to Kansas City to face the champs, dropped to number 4 in the Heed the Call power rankings. So my theory that, Mark, I bravely postulated that the Chiefs actually might not be that good. This isn't a rope-a-dope situation. They're coming down in the rankings. So maybe there's some support, even if some are afraid to say it for fear of ridicule.
Well, I think there's a little exhaustion around the Chiefs in the way
Right
that
about
they
that.
win games. They seem impenetrable in terms of one-possession games. Something happens each week that kind of magnifies their I wouldn't call it luck, but I think that's what people would call it. But this is a different situation. Like, this is like the Chargers. There is evidence that like the Jim Harbaugh effect matters a lot to this team. Like, Justin Herbert has gone 10 straight starts without throwing an interception. They've got, this is a surprise to me, but they've got the best scoring defense in the league. And so isn't this why Jim Harbaugh was brought to LA and to the Chargers for this exact matchup? And I wonder if that will, if this needs to translate right now.
Yeah, Mike, I feel like Harbaugh, he loves this. Like, the idea to go to Kansas City, Arrowhead, he knows, we all know that the Chiefs, and you look at the over-under, it's only 42.5. So, like, it's a kind of a game that you figure is going to be close, not a lot of points, and the Chargers have been winning those games all year.
Yeah, I really like the Chargers in this. I do think they're the better team between the two. The closer to being the more complete. I don't think the Chiefs are bad or anything, but they do have some like pretty fatal flaws that we're seeing each week. I don't know what's going on with their tackle situation. This looks like an extended version of that Super Bowl Mahomes lost. Suddenly they just can't cover. maybe they're missing my boy Jalen Watson. Go Cougs. They don't rush the passer super well. They're like bottom 5 in like sack rate or something. All these things we're kind of used to seeing. We're like, oh wait, they're not good at that stuff anymore. And then on the flip side, like Mark mentioned, the Chargers are locking up, and you got Lightning Lad and Jay Herbo is about as good as any wide receiver quarterback combo in the league. I wonder if like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, like if they ever peep a Chargers game and they're like, wow, that looks like fun. 2 guys balling and they have a defense. I feel so bad for the Bengals sometimes because that is the best quarterback receiver duo. We'll talk about them later. But yeah, I like the Chargers in this. I think Harbaugh, he relishes the moment to go in there and just like he'll say some wonky Jameis type stuff before and after the game, which I do think that they're going to go win.
Well, he gave them all lunch pails this week, like physically, like actual lunch pails with some of his favorite words on them, like stalwart, for example. So that's something. And okay, so the Ladd McConkey, he's really banged up. He's really the only player that Justin Herbert can trust throwing to. I still like the Chargers in this game because of how devastating the situation is at left tackle for the Chiefs. Midway through the fourth quarter last week, the Chiefs replaced Wanya Morris, he's been struggling with the knee issue. They moved Joe Thuney from left guard to left tackle. And they put like second-year player Mike Caliendo at left guard. I didn't do that right, Dan. I'm sorry. Okay, but here's why this is such a huge problem. I mean, it's already an issue, right? We know that. We see it's all over the tape. Pat Mahomes is visibly frustrated with some of the hits that he's taking. He took 20 hits in 5 days between Carolina and in their previous game, and then their previous game. Excuse me. So this is why it's such an issue against the Chargers. The Chargers are just one of 3 teams who have 4 players who have recorded per Next Gen Stats 120 or more snaps from the right edge. So they can put whoever they want among Dupree, Khalil Mack, Tui Pelotu, excuse me, sorry, Tui, and Joey Bosa. They can rotate whoever they want against the Chiefs' biggest weakness, and that player can have success, and they can keep that player fresh. They can put any of 4 guys there and just harass Mahomes all day.
Yeah, I think it's a major concern. I think that's the key to this idea of are the Chiefs actually in trouble as we head down the stretch? Can they get the offensive line fixed? Because, yeah, that year that they were devastated on the line, they won the AFC title. But then when they got to the Super Bowl and they faced a team in Tampa Bay that could pin back their ears and get after the quarterback, Mahomes took a vicious beating in that game. They got blown out. There was, and you made a good point there, Jourdan, that you have seen that frustration. Mahomes obviously is a class act and a great teammate, so he's not going to go blow up people. But you saw him gesturing towards, I believe, Andy Reid late in that game. I think before the Chiefs had a chance to close that game out against the Raiders on offense, and I think they went 3 and out, which prompted the drive by O'Connell that ended with a terrible fumble. But kind of like that gesture, like, come on, you guys got to get me some help here. And they're past the trade deadline. We're past everything. And now it's just they need to find a way to make it work. Here's Mahomes talking a little bit about the offensive line and execution issues.
I don't know if it's affected me too much. I mean, I've played with all those guys before, and I know those guys are out there battling. They're out there, and they've played winning football before. And so I just go about my business, go about my process, and try to stay within the scheme of the offense. And then when stuff breaks down, I try to go out there and make plays. And so that's what I'm going to continue to do.
After that last sack in the fourth quarter, looked like you were pretty upset about that. Did you talk to Andy about making a change at any point there?
I did not. No, I was more upset just because I felt like there was people open, and we hadn't scored in the red zone. And so I knew that was a big drive, and I think I was just more upset about the fact that we didn't execute at a high enough level in the red zone.
So then, to me, yeah, there it is. It comes down to, Mark, do the Chargers, with McConkey either out or limited here, can they put up enough points, or is this gonna profile as another narrow Chiefs win where they make the big play at the end? I think this is a field goal game, and I could see it going either way. It would be a huge win for the Chargers if they could pull it off.
Yeah, like I'm a little surprised to hear the negativity around Kansas City because they overcome their weaknesses better than any team in the league.
But you said it, Mark. Like, people are just sick of the Chiefs at this point, and I think
that's different. That's different than
actually.
Yeah. That's different because I think that's emotional, and I don't disagree with that. But and they play close games, so I think you're right that it will be a close game. But the idea that the Chargers, who to me the one issue is they're weapons poor. They have an empty shelf when it comes to how are they going to beat Kansas City on offense? With who? With what? Because they were meant to be this run-heavy bully, and there's been plenty of games where they've not really run the ball as well as you'd think either. So I want to see it happen. I think it'd be a great story in the AFC for the Chargers to do it under Harbaugh, but I just keep picking Kansas City over and over because they're going to find a way in the final 10 minutes of the game to stretch it out and win. This is what they do. I can't diagnose a Chargers victory here.
Well, thanks for trying.
Well, you want me to, though. I know.
No, I don't care. I mean, again, yeah, I don't care if you do or not. But I do think the Chiefs by 3.5. This is a field goal game. I feel pretty good about that. Let's move to yes,
Cameron
Jourdan,
Dicker. Somewhat ironically, the Chargers are in a much more stable situation right now at kicker. I mean, the Chiefs backup to the backup to the backup that they signed. Yeah, it hasn't been an issue per se, but Cameron Dicker is nails. Also, he dressed up as Edna Mode for Halloween, so icon.
There you go. And isn't it such a Chiefs thing that they could be on their 4th kicker and it's not an issue yet?
Yes,
I know, right?
Lose a bunch of heartbreaking, dumb games just like everybody else does. What the hell? All right, the other game, Monday Night Football, not as tasty. In fact, pretty wretched. In fact, as I understand it, my sons are amped up about it because they saw the commercial. I read somewhere that Cincinnati at Dallas, obviously Cincinnati, one of the most disappointing teams, if not the most disappointing team in football, hopelessly out of the mix right now. The Cowboys, we all know about the Cowboys. Game wasn't flexed because of a prior business arrangement with, I believe, Disney or Nickelodeon for some type of, it's The Simpsons. It's The Simpsons.
Yeah, they had already done the drawing and the illustrations.
Right, that is going to be aired concurrently with this game, and they couldn't obviously parachute out of that because of all the work and the agreement. So us as football fans, we're stuck with 2 teams playing out the string, essentially. So here are the Bengals. Same old story with the Bengals. They're going to score a lot of points but not get stops against the Cowboys in Dallas. Buck Aikman, Salters on the call. Jourdan, what are you thinking here?
I think Dallas's defense looks better. And, when you add Micah Parsons back into a lineup, you're going to get better. But I do think that they're starting to express their pressure packages that maybe they wanted to do earlier in the year, particularly on known passing downs or must pass or predictable pass downs. They're pressuring quarterbacks at a 50% rate per next gen. Joe Burrow's great against pressure. So that's, to me, the matchup to watch here that does make this, besides the Simpsons thing, a little bit more exciting than what it looks like on paper, because everywhere else, I don't have any expectation at all for the weaknesses of either of these units, the weaknesses of the Bengals defense, for example, and now they're going to be without linebacker Logan Wilson. He's going to miss the rest of the season after getting knee surgery, reported by multiple outlets on Thursday morning. Sorry about the siren in the background of my audio.
No, it's gritty. It's good.
Yeah. And we're going to suffer through this game.
Yeah, the blood is in the alley and the streets.
But I think, honestly, these teams are who they are. We're seeing now that their weaknesses will be exposed for everyone to see and probably piss Jamar Chase off even more than he already is.
Oh, let's listen to Jamar Chase. Nice tee up, Jourdan. She didn't even know we had it locked.
I'm learning.
What a stud.
A pro.
That Jourdan Rodrigue.
I do have it. It's in the rundown, which I was in very early in the week.
Oh, yes. Very good. Very good. Look at you. Unbelievable. Anyway, frustration leaking out from everywhere. We've heard Burrow's comments were not so cryptic, pretty on the nose. In fact, after the loss to Pittsburgh at home, where he's like, yeah, these last 5 weeks, we're going to find out who can help us and who can't, and then Jamar Chase was asked in the locker room after the game, do you feel like the pressure to always be on offense? And here's what he said.
Did you feel like y'all offensively had to score every drive given kind of how the game was going, especially early? Did you feel y'all pressing to kind of get as many points as possible given how the back and forth was?
That's kind of our expectations now.
How tough is that to play on a game in and game out basis knowing you as an offense don't really have much of a margin for error?
Got to find a way.
Jamar, are you surprised your defense has struggled the way it has?
I don't know. They need to find a way. We got to find a way.
Rough. Mike, you cover the Seattle Seahawks. I don't think you were there for the peak Legion of Boom years, but there was always a lot of tension, or at least we were told from the outside, with that great defense and then Russell Wilson in the offense. And in general, locker rooms, can they be torn apart by that type of discrepancy and difference between the production level of each side of the ball?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when the guys on offense can get the benefit of the doubt that Joe can. Like, you just know, like, no one's gonna be like, Joe, play better. You know what I mean? Because he's been to the Super Bowl and he's killing it right now. That looks like, honestly, a little bit like your Jets last couple years, where the defense was nails and their offense like could not get the ball across midfield. And eventually, the nicest guys in the world, like even like DJ Reed, were like, "Dog, do we need to get pick sixes every week? Like, this is ridiculous." Like I mentioned, we talked about the Chargers. I do feel like bad for Joe and those guys. And also, this is just now was an example of why me and Jourdan are simpatico. The first line on my notes for the Bengals, who's they playing? Oh, Cowboys, was is nice to see Dallas's defense showing some life, in parentheses, Micah, ! Top 5. The Cowboys are top 5 in pressure rate. Because that's the first thing I was looking at. I was like, oh, the Cowboys defense doesn't suck anymore. But honestly, I know we don't have the sound of that, but like you alluded to, Dan, Joe Burrow's comments were even like almost just as bad after the game to me, because he was pretty much like, yeah, man, I gotta score a lot. I gotta be perfect. Here we go. I mean, same thing as Jamar, but like I feel like he's a little bit more like, when you're a receiver, you kind of expect that, but for the quarterback to basically like, dang, this sucks, man. I gotta throw like 5 touchdowns a week, and we still might lose. To hear him basically come out and say that, if you're the defense, that's got to light a fire under you more than any getting cussed out or chewed out. Like Joe and Jamar are legitimately just like disappointed in you, like parents, at how bad you stink. That's got to fire them up somehow, I would like to think.
Well, and I think if you're Joe Burrow, you're savvy enough to know how MVP voting in general works, and he's watching his best season flitter away. He has the most losses with 300 plus passing yards and 3 touchdowns in a single season in NFL history. And this team, the stats around and the numbers around Cincinnati are starting to become incredible. Like, they're 0-7 against sub 500 teams, but they are scoring 30 plus points a game in those defeats. I mean, this is
hard
like
to
this.
do.
This is how you tear a locker room apart. Absolutely,
It's one of the weirdest seasons ever. It's one of the
It's
weirdest
so-
seasons ever.
It's so hard to do. That is so hard to do. And I just wanted to ask Mike and Dan, do you guys remember that one glorious week where you shared the Jets?
Oh yeah. I do. It
Whenever
was
Mike
special.
says your Jets with a little
Yeah.
emphasis, I always think of that one week.
It's like Mike, like I've been rooting for the Jets since 1988 when my dad took me to my first game in a downpour at the old Giants Stadium, and Freeman McNeil fumbled in the red zone in overtime, and the Jets had to settle for a 17-17 tie with the Chiefs. And I've been living through it for 35 years since or whatever. Mike, it just took one game for him to be like, I am out of here.
Yeah, I think I can't remember when exactly it was, but I do know whatever game that Devontae Adams decided he was the adult in the room, that's when I was like, oh, this is bad.
That was
Like,
after his first game, literally. What a
I was like, oh
season.
my God. I was just joking with guys about that in the press box at MetLife just last weekend. I was like, yo, when Devontae shows up and decides he's the adult, oh, you guys are cooked. I don't know how talented he
Parallel
is.
vibes, though, to the point that, to bring it full circle, like the Jets and the Bengals, players getting more outspoken by the week, compounding failure. Now, what the Bengals are accomplishing right now, as Mark pointed out, is nothing short of historic for Joe Burrow for all the right reasons, for the entire team for all of the wrong reasons, and truly, like they are about to make history this year with that gap between offensive production and defensive failure.
Shout out to along the beat reporter reigns, like Rich Cimini of ESPN, who's covered the Jets since 1989, and covering the same shit over and over again cannot be easy. And a little shout out before we hit the break to Trevor Sakema and Seth Galina over at PFF, who do great work.
They do.
Had a great podcast title this week. Joe Burrow's lost MVP season. Indeed. It is a lost MVP season. It will be forgotten, but those who watched it, you marvel at how well a quarterback can play and a team could be this bad. Anyway, let's take a break. We'll be right back with the games we cannot wait to watch.
This episode of Heed the Call is brought to you by Rocket Money. Managing finances can feel complicated and time-consuming, right? But it doesn't have to be. Rocket Money simplifies everything, making it so easy to see exactly what's happening with your finances, track your spending, and give you full control of it all, right from your phone. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. With Rocket Money, you can see all of your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. For any you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them with a few taps. This has saved me tons. It's funny how many subscriptions I had totally forgotten about. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/HTC. That's rocketmoney.com/HTC. rocketmoney.com/HTC.
All right, we are back. All right, before we get to the games we cannot wait to watch, just a reminder that the NBA season is in full swing and Underdog has tons of fun ways to get in on the action with...
Why are we getting off here?
Oh, for f***'s sake.
Tank slow. The last thing we need right now is to be stranded on the highway.
With nightly NBA pick'em slates, plenty of discounts and promos all week long, and you can even play against other users with daily tournaments.
Terry, is all this really necessary?
Look, honey, it's just a precaution. In 3 weeks, the trial will be over. Besides, the kids will love staying at their granny's for a few days, right?
Check your oil, sir?
Yeah, sure. Lisa, this is a gangland trial, and I'm the prosecution's ace in the hole. Now, I don't want to frighten you, but if they can find a way to get to me, they will.
I just don't like taking the kids out of school, you know? Living like fugitives.
Trust me on this, alright? I know what I'm doing.
Okay.
Where's that guy going to? Now, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Oh, wait a second. Lisa! Lisa! Get out of the car! Get out of the car! No! No! Why? Vipers!
In private drafts where Underdog is giving out over $100,000 every single day, just download the Underdog app, sign up with the code HTC. That's us. And receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash for our U.S. audience only.
Well, that had a real has a real 70s television drama vibe to it. But then, you know, if you're Lisa, your acting career is taking off, and suddenly you're essentially written out of the show. I mean, it's a tough situation.
R.I.P.
Wow. I mean, Mike, you know, you are a cinephile, and I feel like all of a sudden we found ourselves at a crucible point. Feels like the third act is going to be off the chain.
It does. What's that? This that long-running soap opera is like Young and the Restless or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes. My grandma that my grandma always watches. That's what that sounds like, but like the modern version. I like it.
My hope is that we get a Dark Terry arc, like John Wick style.
I mean, you can only hope. I mean, Lisa's gone. It sounds like the kids.
Were the kids in the car?
Yeah, it's
pretty dark.
That was a choice.
I just want to say there's some
The
pretty
choice by the
incredible
Vipers.
There's some pretty incredible sound design there with the footsteps, the gravel, very impressed.
All right, games we can't wait to watch. It's getting increasingly difficult to, pivot back to football. It's so trivial when, All right, Jourdan, get us going. With what game are you so excited for in Week 14 that you could actually just totally, push to the side the murder of an entire family?
I think you have set me up to follow this every single week.
I mean, how?
By the way, I don't know how. I can't.
How shallow can one be? It's it's not all about football, Jourdan. And here you go, just wanting to get back to ball, as an unspeakable human tragedy unfolded right before our ears.
Yeah, this is the Marc intersection: football and unspeakable human tragedy. Actually, so that's good. Okay, well, the game that I can't wait to watch is number 21 in the Heed the Call power rankings, Atlanta at number 5, Minnesota. This is the Davis, Greg Olsen, Pam Oliver game. I'm going to be honest. I picked this game because, to use a Mark phrase, minus the curse, the Vikings are a pet team of mine. They have been all year. I love this crew. I love listening to Greg Olsen talk about football and teach people as he commentates. I hope that he keeps winning awards, to win some sort of award, and cements his legacy as the actual one crew.
One thing, Jourdan, not to interrupt, but do we think the gas station attendant, so he's responsible, right? I mean, he sounded pretty ominous in general.
It feels like, what if he was in disguise? It sounded
so
like a
it's the head of
disguised,
the Vipers, maybe.
disguised voice almost. It sounded a little garbled, like somebody who normally has a velvety smooth voice.
Yeah.
Put several layers of gravel over it.
All right, back. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just
one person's analysis of that situation. Yeah.
Check your oil. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Here are the key plot points of this football game.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold hit a slump a few weeks ago. It wasn't nearly as low as we've seen before. That's the combination of repeated good habits, confidence, great scheme, a great play caller, and a great cast around him in each phase, which Terry really could have used, to be honest. He's coming off 2 clutch late game performances, and the Falcons are coming off inarguably their best defensive performance of the season, which was wasted by a totally immobile Kirk Cousins, who threw 4 picks and is even having a hard time stretching to execute a basic play action, which is leading to whispers in and outside of that market that they should play Mike Penix. But Kirk Cousins, by the way, who is returning to Minnesota this weekend, so it's time for a caffeine shot right to the calf, Kirk. Bijan Robinson is becoming the Falcons' entire offense. He and Tyler Algier are in the top 5 of missed tackles forced this season. Plot point, they face the number 1 run defense in the NFL in Minnesota in yards per game and scoring. The Vikings are second this season in record in one-possession games, which I don't think this will come down to. Some are using this to doubt their caliber, kind of similarly to what we've just talked about with the Chiefs. But here are the top teams in that parameter in 2024. The Chiefs, of course, 9-0 in one-possession games. Vikings are 7-1. The Eagles are 6-1. The Lions are 5-1. And we are not questioning the caliber of the Eagles or the Lions at this point. I don't expect this to be a one-possession game, but Kirk with a caffeine shot to the calf in Minnesota, this might get freaky.
I'm getting close.
We're all still mourning. There's just silence.
Maybe I'm alone here, but I'm getting close to.
I'm searching Kirk Cousins' caffeine shot to see if this was an actual thing to his calf, or if that's just an expression. Okay,
and find out if it makes you freaky as well while you're on the Google search there.
Yeah, that would.
I was gonna do the same thing, but
is Kirk freaky with
many
his
hands
make
for lighter work?
Yeah, you should Google search that, Dan, for sure.
You don't know what.
Try to do it on a work computer.
You don't want to know. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I'm just getting close to the idea that if you want to get freaky and you're the Falcons, that I'm ready to try Michael Penix in this offense. And I get that people, maybe that sounds a little cliche at this point, but I really feel like Kirk Cousins, who has a negative EPA in 3 straight games, and it's not just the turnovers. You're going to get that game with Kirk Cousins. He's going to process and see the field and read defenses better than a rookie, obviously, in many ways. And his effort is not to be questioned, but Atlanta almost needs to save their season at some point. And so I am really ready to find out what this offense looks like with a hyper strong-armed rookie passer who can move.
I think that's a popular opinion.
Yeah, I don't
In
think
general,
it's
people always wanna
completely
toss
unusual.
out,
Right.
Yeah, the veteran and like get in the kid, especially if it's a first round pick and the circumstances around the decision making that Atlanta made. And I can't even venture a guess what conversations are being had behind the scenes of the Falcons, because what they did was so unorthodox. I have no idea they gave Kirk Cousins a shit ton of money and then drafted a quarterback in the top 10. So it's like, who knows? Maybe they're itching to get him in, but I would say, like, as someone who's followed Cousins his whole career, Mike, this isn't the first time Kirk Cousins has had a slump. Now, yes, He is older. He's thrown some balloon balls. He can't move and all that stuff. But like, I would think Cousins also is the same guy earlier in the season, threw for 500 yards and on Thursday Night Football, and he has a way. I think he can see himself out of this. I think it would be a mistake to bench him at his lowest point, but at the same time, I can understand why conversations might be being had, because you might think what Mark's saying, like maybe to save the season, we have a shot in the arm on the bench. I just think that would be kind of a rash decision to make personally, given Cousins' track record as being a consistent producer.
Yeah, I'm torn on this. I was thinking about this week too when I got caught up on the games this week and I saw all the Kirk plays, not even just the picks, but like some of them, just some of the plays in general. I was like, oh, he might need to be taken out back. Like, this is pretty bad. But at the same time, this is why I wasn't a fan of the playing for the present and the future thing the Falcons tried to do, because it's tricky. You know, you set yourself up for a potential lose-lose. Either you drafted a guy in the top 10 who you won't even get a chance to play while he's on his rookie deal, which does matter, you know, because the guy you gave $100 million to or whatever is too good, which is like kind of a lose-lose a little bit, depending on how far you go with the other guy you gave all the money to. Or you end up playing Penix early because the guy you guaranteed $100 million to isn't good enough, you know, and that's kind of where they're at right now. I don't think necessarily the reason I would lean towards keeping Cousins out there is giving him the benefit of the doubt. Like, he doesn't stink. Like, he's lit up. He's a big part of the reason why they're still in first place in the division, because he lit up the Bucs and they got the tiebreaker over them, which is important. So I don't think they necessarily need to save their season, quote unquote, because they could limp to the wild card round and get a home playoff game. Which yes, limping literally with Kirk, and that doesn't sound too like great. But then some. This is maybe one of those situations where I'm not in Atlanta, but I do understand everyone's got bosses, right? Like, if you're answering to Arthur Blank and you haven't won, I don't think they've had a home playoff game since the Trump inauguration, you know? So like, that's a long time ago to not get that money, get that excitement in your city. And they're going to get that this year, I think, with Kirk. So while to the rest of us, we're like, let's see Penix, he's got a higher ceiling. I can understand being like, yo, we just gave my man $100 million guaranteed. He's going to get us the division title, which is probably going to be the case. We're going to get a home playoff game. Like, there's ways to view the season as a success, even if Kirk limps you there. So I would probably keep him in there unless he completely stinks up the joint. But because I think revenge games have generally gone well for teams this season, I think like his Vikings game will be pretty good and he'll look like passable and they'll stay within reach of winning the division, which I do think is a big deal to a franchise like that hasn't done it in forever.
The Falcons have scored just 12 points per game since week 10. The Vikings allow just 18.3 points per game, which is fifth best in the NFL right now. That defense just keeps on churning and churning and churning and recreating itself week over week. I had some logistics insight on the Penix potential swap, but I know we want to make sure we move. But I also have a Darnold Hive nugget for you, Dan. So you pick which one do you want?
I mean, you choose one or not both. One of them. Which one works the best?
I have to give you your Darnold Hive nugget because I do that. That's my tradition that I'm doing every week now. So Sam Darnold is tied with Lamar Jackson in games with a 100-plus passer rating in 2024. 10.
Hear that, Dugar?
Ahead of Jared Goff and Joe Burrow, who each have 8. That's the Darnold Hive nugget of the week.
Dugar.
Dan's in the corner still with the whiskey in his coffee.
By the way, you did promise, Mike, on text to DoorDash the Darnold Hive if he finished that comeback win on Sunday, which he did. So Chipotle, please. That would be great.
Yeah. I was very happy about that, about that comeback.
And you're still welcome in. It's not too late. Do you want to join us? Come on.
No, it's going to take me a little bit still. However, I do think the last couple of weeks, though, he has made some big boy throws, win or lose. Like, they've always been winning, but the throws he's been making late have been just really good, and him and Kevin O'Connell are really dialed in. That's been really impressive to watch.
Can I ask a question visually? So you're let me get this straight, because that text kind of threw me about the DoorDash. So you're sending like a Chipotle burrito into the structure of a beehive? Is that
no? When I sent that, I meant that I would support the business by ordering some food from there if he had completed. I won't go
I saw it as
support the business.
So we're getting a burrito from a beehive. I'm trying to figure this out, but
I saw it as like the hive is growing as it becomes more powerful. And it's gotten to the point where you could just send a delivery guy in there. Now, does the delivery guy get out? Probably not, but like the burritos get in, and that's a good thing.
Well, that's
Is that a euphemism?
Okay.
The game I cannot wait to watch. The number 11 Seattle Seahawks in the Heed the Call Power Rankings traveling to the desert to face the number 13 Arizona Cardinals. Love it. Like this game. It's juicy. And you got Ian Eagle and Charles Davis, two of our favorites on the call. You know, Mike, you know, I'm sure you know better than anyone. The Seahawks fans, very passionate, great fan base. That building is as loud and as energetic as any in the world. The loudest stadium I've ever been in. I was down on the field for the first game after they won the Super Bowl in 2014, the Thursday night opener against the Packers, and I've never been in a louder place in my life. So I say that with respect for Seattle fans. They're also a very sensitive bunch, and they're always in their feelings and believing that they don't get enough credit and this and that. And when I made the mistake, I guess, on Sunday of saying I wasn't impressed at all with their win against the Jets, I got criticism for that. But I stand by it. Like, I watched that game, and I'm like, man, if they weren't playing like the one team in the NFL that more than any other team in the league just blows games and invents ways to lose games, Seattle goes to the East Coast and gets their ass kicked by a team with 3 wins entering the game, and they're good enough to, when a gift is offered to them, they say, okay, we'll take the gift, which was that game. But I need to see them play a lot better than they did on Sunday. And one thing to point out specifically is Geno, who's having, I think, a good year on balance, and he's been the answer quarterback. And they did a nice job identifying him ultimately when a lot of people, myself included, didn't think he could be a long-term answer. But they got to protect him better. Like, I don't feel like he's getting enough time, and he's taking hits. The Jets got to him on Sunday. And if you take Geno out of this offense, they have no chance at all. So can the pass rush, or can the line hold up and allow Geno to pick apart the Cardinals? And obviously on the Arizona side, can they start scoring points again?
Yeah, you're right, Dan. The Jets, if you didn't know either team's record going into the game, by the fourth quarter you were like, oh, the green team is probably bad. Because they were there were 3 fourth downs in a row in the fourth quarter while the Jets had the lead that the defense committed penalties. Like, that was crazy. 4th and 6, they had too many men on the field. 4th and 1 DPI, 4th and 1 horse collar, and eventually the Seahawks went and took the lead. Like,
when the punter was hurt, by the way, Mike, and they had too many men on the field because the punt returner is on the other end of the field, and there's no communication. It's just let's just move on. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was bad, but I do think there is something to be said for just. Pete Carroll used to say this a lot. Just do right longer than the other guys. That was kind of one of his philosophies. And that game was a good example of that, even though if the Jets were just helping them by doing wrong longer than the other team. I do think it's hard to ask much more of Seattle's defense, though. Since the bye, I believe they're number 2 in opponent points per drive, I think behind Detroit, and number 1 in defensive EPA per play. It's a small sample. It's only 3 games, but they're starting to look like the defense that was promised when Mike McDonald was hired from Baltimore. They're just toying with quarterbacks each week. There's at least a play or two in each game in the last few weeks, wins over the Cardinals, Niners, and Jets, where the other quarterback just clearly doesn't know what's going on. There were several in the game against Aaron Rodgers, a veteran guy, one of which included him throwing a pick 6 to a fat man. Pick 6 by Leonard Williams, because he just didn't know what was going on. He thought he was high.
Leonard Williams is not fat. Come on.
He's 300 plus. What are we calling that?
He's a gorgeous athlete is what he is. But go on.
You can be fat and gorgeous for what it's worth.
Thank you very much.
That's fair.
You can be, but actually, so I'm much more worried about Seattle's offense. It just seems a little out of whack. They had that disgusting goal line series where they just didn't understand that number 95 on the other team is very good. So that's Quentin Williams. So I think they only scored 10 points on offense in their win over the Cardinals a couple weeks ago. So if the Seahawks are going to win this, which I'm still torn on whether they will, it really is going to come down to their offense kind of getting its head out of its butt, because while the defense has been so great the last 3 weeks, the offense has just kind of been skating by, and that's hard to do consistently against teams that aren't the Jets.
There's a couple games this week where the divisional teams just met. Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Seattle, Arizona, they just met, 14 days ago. And so I do look back at those matchups and think they matter versus if they had played in week 3. And they put a ton of pressure on Kyler Murray. Seattle did a number of weeks ago, 5 sacks. The thing that really made the difference for me was that James Conner, who is their engine, and when he's running well and he's physical and they're able to run the ball the way they want to, that's when they start to become the Cardinals that you can believe in. But they held them to 1.1 yards per carry. They shut down that run game. And so for me, that's the Mike Macdonald defense showing up in a big divisional matchup. Can they duplicate it? I think they can. That's like I'm as pro Cardinals as it gets, and I'm concerned about this matchup because it, to me, translates. It travels what they did 2 weeks ago to now. And if you can get in Kyler Murray's face and cause him frustration, then you can win a close game. Because I think it's going to be a tight, low-scoring, kind of close affair.
There is no way to say this that is not going to get clipped or ridiculed. But the thing that stuck out to me as the difference between the Mike Macdonald defense is close to getting to where it needs to be to it is now what it should be and it is asserting is particularly on that defensive line. There's a difference between wrapping and tackling a powerful running back to the ground and penetrating. And the Seahawks defense was actually against James Conner and that outstanding rushing attack. They were penetrating, and they were contacting James Conner. Wagon. Oh my God, damn it. I'm going to try to push through. They contacted James Conner behind the line of scrimmage on almost 60% of his carries in that game per next gen. So that goes to show it's not just you are technically sound, you are winning the contact point at the line of scrimmage, which is what this defensive line was intended to do between its scheme and the ability of the players up front, which makes the difference to me between a defense that is trying to figure out its identity and a defense that has securely gotten on that track.
And before we move to the next game, not to belabor the point, obviously, Mark, but Cardinals 4-game winning streak, hit their bye. You got behind them. In the moment, I said, this is very dangerous, Mark, what you've done, your history. There's a curse connected to you and getting behind teams. They've lost 2 straight. I know you don't even have to acknowledge it, but I know you're very nervous about Sunday because a 3-game losing streak following a 4-game winning streak with the inciting incident being you saying this team is great, not great for the brand.
It's not great for the brand. What I'm trying to avoid is like on Sunday when like 14 games are happening at the same time and like Justin's texting the little snarky anti-Cardinals business. I don't need it. There's too much happening on Sunday, so it's like I want to avoid that.
Talk about them.
Situation.
Let them come under the radar. Silent.
Immense amount of pressure on Marc Sessler's shoulders going into Sunday.
Can I quantify the pressure on Mark's shoulders?
Yeah, go ahead.
With some work from our,
I love talking about this, so go on, Mike. Yeah,
it's some work from our resident number cruncher, Austin Mock at The Athletic, who does good work. According to his model, if the Seahawks win this game, their chances of winning, going to the playoffs are 66%. Chances of winning the division are 63%. With that same result, so Seahawks win, Arizona Cardinals odds of going to the playoffs drop to 12%, and their odds of winning the division drop to 10% if they lose. So a lot of pressure.
Is even going to get out of bed? I mean,
no,
the
I'm
anxiety,
shutting out all the distraction and noise. They're going to get down. They're going to handle their business. Although I would say it's one of the least impactful home field advantages in the NFL. So that is a concern for me always with the Cardinals.
You never want to go into the big toaster. All right, Mark, the game that you cannot. Well, in Mark's defense, there's not a lot on the meat on the bone if you get into the dock late, as Mark did. So what is the game that you, I don't believe this, but you cannot wait to watch?
Well, so let's be real. Like, I've had a pretty good streak, I think 3 or 4 weeks in a row where I jumped in the document and got like a high quality game. I'm going Carolina at Philadelphia, but I do actually find this intriguing because of who the Panthers have been and who Bryce Young has been. And I do wonder, like, I'm not calling it a trap game because the Eagles to me seem pretty impenetrable right now, but I do wonder if this is kind of a staple game where Dave Canales can tell David Tepper up in the booth where he's not spilling drinks on people, hopefully this week, but he can tell.
Spilling.
Yeah, well, okay.
That's one way to put it.
projecting drinks onto people. But I think this is an opportunity for Dave Canales to say, this is why you hired me. Like, if we can hang with the Eagles, if we get another good game out of Bryce Young, they really have been a different team. And I went and looked at their PFF roster, and the offensive line has been such a problem for them. They got 4 to 5 guys in the green right now, which is good for PFF. It says they're productive, they're handling their business to some degree. Can you hold off guys like Jalen Carter, who plays every snap, every game, is completely disruptive, and keep this going? Because I think the Panthers suddenly, their entire experience and who they are has shifted. They were going to go draft a quarterback. They want to trade the quarterback. Now he's playing well. You can add pieces around him. Or is this just a game where a bully, the Eagles, who've turned into a complete second half bully, unleash Saquon Barkley? It's another chapter in his potential MVP campaign, and they blow the doors off Carolina and bring them back to earth. It does interest me from that angle, because I think we've seen a completely different Panthers team. This is not just an acid test. This is might be the best team in the NFC in terms of health, how they're playing right now, how they're playing in the second half. How does Carolina stack up? What does Dave Canales do? What advantage does he bring? So, yes, it's not the greatest game of the season, but I do want to watch it. I do want to see what happens.
I hear what you're saying. I hear where you're going on it. And if the Eagles romp, it doesn't teach me much more than I already know about the Eagles. But if Jourdan, the team used to cover, the Panthers, if they either hang tight in this game, like for instance, the Desert doesn't think anybody's hanging here because they have it at 12.5, the biggest spread of the week. But if Carolina keeps this thing within a score, or God shocks the world and wins, it's all of a sudden, I mean, this would be a major moment for the organization, because I think a win in this spot, for instance, would lock up the idea of we're getting behind the quarterback moving forward. So there are big stakes for the Panthers if they can, ball out.
And bear with me here, because I know what I'm about to say sounds totally nuts, but Bryce Young is actually the prototypical quarterback to best work against this Fangio defense. This is the type of problem-solving, quick throw, underneath guy who can still cut up the seam, against a too high shell if that's what's presented to him, who can problem-solve some of the coverages. If this game were going to happen last year, we would just be like, oh my God, hope he's okay, hope he lives through this, right? And he still might get the shit kicked out of him. He still might get hassled up. All of these things that we have seen the Panthers allow in the past couple of years still might happen. But the difference right now is that Bryce Young is playing with confidence. He understands what he's seeing and he trusts what he's seeing. He is reading the field really well. He is seeing mixed coverages, different types of things really well. And he's playing like a quarterback where I think you could really learn something, even if the Panthers lose, which I think everybody expects them to, and it'd be really cool to see an upset. I love what the Eagles are doing, but it would be cool to see David slaying Goliath kind of a thing. However, if we're going to go with logic and reason, really what I think is the coolest thing about this game is watching Bryce Young grow in real time through something that is not going to fatally destroy his brain, because he's not there anymore. He's not in that place anymore. And I just think that's awesome. And I love that for him. And I can't wait to see how he assesses what is going on across from him and how he sort of picks his way through all of the things that Vic Fangio and Joe Casper and Christian Parker, Clint Hurt are going to throw at him between the first level of the defense and the back.
I would say the fly in the ointment here is that the Panthers, for all the optimism, have the worst run defense in the league. So
yeah.
that's
is Bryce going to get a possession? Let's see.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike, anything on this one?
Yeah, Mark said something I hadn't really thought about, was the idea of how well, of Bryce playing well enough so that they don't have to draft a quarterback. And I kind of hadn't thought about that till just now, because he is playing better, though that's relative to him being just awful beforehand. So I'm just pondering that, how well would Bryce have to play for the final however many games for you to go into the draft being like, all right, we're good. We don't need Cam Ward or Shador or whoever, Quinn, whoever's eligible, that's interesting. I think right now, I would probably still take a guy. This game, I think, will will say a lot in terms of measuring that, because he has played well, but this is set up for some regression here. This defense is built, in a way like they're so good up the middle on the D line, which is how they gave Lamar and them some trouble too. And Bryce, his height, his weight, like this is the type of game where I can just picture Jalen Carter body slamming him or something. I hope he plays well, but yeah, that's an interesting one to think about. How well does he have to play to kind of keep his job in Carolina?
I'll quote Aaron Boone. It's all in front of him. I think if he finishes with some quality performances, basically continues to play like he has the last few weeks, I think the Panthers would be crazy. I mean, in general, I think the way the league now works,
there. I think we're there. I don't think they're picking.
Well,
a
you could always he could always tank again, and then you have to have that conversation. But I think if he just finishes at this level, I mean that drive that could have been the game-winning drive, really it was an eye-opener for me, the way he handled himself and how much more comfortable he is in the pocket and how his accuracy is back. We're not seeing the jump throws anymore. If he can just kind of finish at a similar level, the league is so antsy to just get out of these quarterback picks. Now, give the kid a third year. Last year was a disaster, but the team was absolutely brutal and all the drama around him. Give him a second year with Canales and see what he does. But, again, you have as someone who knows, bad owners make bad decisions and teams stay bad as a result. I could absolutely see them parachuting out of the Young era, but I think that would be premature unless he really craters here.
But you know what changes it a little bit here, especially just knowing the owner a little bit, and just like I think that this is actually a factor here in this decision-making process, is like other teams want Bryce. Other teams, when he was potentially on the trade block, other teams were talking about what it would cost or what it would take to bring him in and try to be the guy who fixes the guy, right? Which
and why, Jourdan?
Every NFL quarterback wants that. Excuse me.
Why are other teams interested in Bryce Young? Why is that?
Because they see how he processes the game, how he has the arm capability and the talent, and they saw the destruction of talent and complete like quicksand around him.
Exactly.
But also, and how that compounded for him as well. So other teams, I'm just saying, this is the ego of the league. They see a quarterback who's struggling, who has some, first of all, intangibles that are great, and then also a physical skill set despite a very diminutive size and frame, and that's a problem. But that's fixable within some offenses. You're seeing it with Baker, who is stockier, but not a lot taller. I mean, hell, Matthew Stafford is not a lot taller than Bryce Young person to person. He's just built, they're just built differently. Hands, feet, just structure, frame, all of that stuff. But, you're looking at these teams who think that they can fix the guy, and they're making the phone call. What would it take? And there's enough buzz about, okay, let's think about really, really long and hard to think about, would we really want to watch someone else potentially fix this quarterback, or do we think we can fix this quarterback? And I think they can. And I don't think he needed a hell of a lot. It just needed a reset. Like, I think he has the skill set. I think he has, over the last couple of weeks, I've been watching his tape, and like, the way he's seeing the field, he trusts what he sees. That was the biggest thing for me. He trusts what he sees. And if you can get your pocket moved, if you have more outlets that you're trusting, that your coaching staff is building in, you have more hot reads against pressure, you have different things, they're learning as they go. And these things now exist within this offense, as does his confidence and trust with what he sees. So I don't think he needs to show them, as long as he doesn't crater over the last couple games, obviously. But I think he has showed them that he is on a positive track forward, as is this coaching staff, in my opinion.
I'm rooting for the kid. Let's go. Finish strong. All right. One more before we hit the break. Mike, what can you, like you just lay in bed. Like, remember when you were 7 years old on Christmas Eve, you cannot fall asleep because you know the big man's coming down the chimney. And for Mike Dugar, that is the same situation when he thinks about what?
Wow, that is a lot. I don't know if
it's a setup.
Yeah, I don't know if I felt that way Christmas too much, but what gave me that feeling was the first day of school. I was a big first day of school.
Yeah, that was a tough one too.
Kid. I couldn't sleep the day before the first day of school. Even my first day of college, I remember that. Anyway,
tough.
So this week, my can't wait for the first day of school game is the Mark's Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are number 6 in the power rankings of record. So this is weird. I can't believe no one picked Bills Rams. Anyway, but I like this game. I just have grown to just like more AFC North ball this year. Pretty much every time I watch an AFC North game, it's entertaining. The last time these two teams played, it was pretty much every other game in the division is. I want to use this time a little bit, though, to talk about Dangerous Wilson. Man, he is cooking. No pun intended with the let Russ cook thing. Like, their offense is still statistically kind of just average since he has been the starter, but Russ is killing it. Top, I think, number 2 in yards per attempt. Touchdown rate's really high. Drop back EPA, like nerd stats and non-nerd stats. He's killing it. I mean, he took advantage of a bad Bengals defense this last week, which is how they put up a gazillion points. But when just watching it, my other takeaway besides the Bengals defense being bad is Russ is like, he has all the answers to the problems in ways that I didn't think he really would. Like when they cover zeroed him, when they dropped 8, when they rotated their safeties, when they were in cover 3, trying to take away some of the checkdowns to Najee, when they went too high to take away the moon balls to George Pickens. Like, he just had an answer for everything, which is why he threw for a bazillion yards. I don't think the Steelers can keep winning like that, but the fact that they kind of have that, it's essentially a curveball a little bit to their fastball of like winning Tomlin ball. To me, like, hey, if we need to score points, we can. That makes them a lot more dangerous, I think, in the big picture.
Dangerous.
Damn, that's good. That's good. So, and I like them. I like this game to see if they can. I want to see them do that again against this Browns defense, which like isn't good, but is like feisty in these AFC North matchups. And then we get in this game, Myles Garrett and TJ Watt round 2. And I love the talk that Myles Garrett had the last time they played. He basically was like, TJ, you stink. I'm that dude. So I like to see that again. And also just one last matchup thing. Denzel Ward, and shout out to defenders in this league. Denzel Ward is playing at a crazy level. I think he has like 19 or 20 passes defense, which is nuts through how many games they have. Not a lot of picks, but he is killing it as well. If George Pickens doesn't get thrown out for like pouring a beer on someone at the kickoff, then I think him and Denzel is going to be a like must-see TV in terms of an individual matchup too. So yeah, this is my lay the clothes out on the bed, can't get any sleep because I want to watch Dangerous get round 2 with Cleveland, because now I'm like an AFC North ball junkie.
Ooh, I like
this
that.
season.
Yeah, the Browns deserve the benefit of the doubt after what we've seen from the last couple weeks. Yeah, I used to do the you would first day of school the night before, you would have the shirt, always fresh stuff, always for me from Marshall's, the discount department store. I would go with mom and I would pick out, so I'd get the new shirt and that'd be hanging on the dresser, and then with like a pair of pants, like sweatpants, until about 8th grade, and I was like, okay, we got to say goodbye to sweatpants. And then I'd have Nikes, brand new Nikes, not Nike Air, but like Marshalls would have like a nice pair of regular Nikes, and then that would be my first day of school, and I just lay looking at them, thinking about, wow, you're gonna look so awesome.
Well, you got to, and that's back in the days, like you're not able to drive, and so like you haven't seen like a girl in 3 months, and so everyone like looks different, they look older, like you got to go with
social
new clothes.
Media. Like
right,
they might as well have been in another dimension.
No, you're like hidden. You're like
yeah.
watching He-Man in your basement all summer. Like there's no there's no life happening for the most part. So and that's when you're ready for the summer to end. But like I thought also the thing that I loved was like the school supplies, where I'd go convince my mom that I needed like way more school supplies than I ever actually used. And I've got like a whole new like Trapper Keeper. I've got like pencils and pens, and like somehow I convinced her to get like a gigantic 24 set of color markers that never even leave the house and are never used for a school project. So yeah, you've got to use it to your advantage, and I'm with you. First day of school was massive.
As far as this game goes, first of all,
the game.
Yeah, shout out to Russell Wilson, because the football cognoscente had written off Wilson at a biblical level over the last couple of years, and to go from where he was in terms of the general opinion of him as being completely washed with a fork sticking out of his back, to being a guy that is leading the attack of one of the best teams in the AFC is quite a story. And I think they changed, ironically, they changed the after the embarrassment of Joe Flacco over DeMar Hamlin last year. They changed the rules of the comeback player of the year. So I don't think Russ is even eligible, but he is the comeback player of the year because of where he was with the narrative around him, straight up his production and how he started to bounce around the league. And now he's a major player. So shout out to Russ.
It's nebulous.
For doing that. And on the Cleveland side, Mark, I was wrong, but in my defense, I didn't look ahead close enough. I didn't realize the Browns had another primetime game. So I'm going to now double down on the prediction. So what the Browns do, they're very fun and entertaining, especially in their building, but shout out for them going to Denver and being fun and entertaining. But the Browns move is just when you think, oh, the Browns are actually good, then they play a Sunday afternoon game when not everyone's watching and they lose by 28 points. And that, I think we're going to get the Browns that are like, people aren't watching anymore, so we'll go back to being shitty. That is my prediction this week, and let's see if I'm wrong again.
We'll see. I love that you brought up Denzel Ward, Mike, because Ward is the type of player who plays really well against AFC North teams. I mean, he's been a terror to Joe Burrow, and I think it translates to the Steelers. There's some really disturbing Browns experience nuggets. They haven't beaten Pittsburgh in 20 years. They haven't swept the Steelers since 1988 when I was a freshman in high school. So the fact that they already took them down.
That was a long time ago, everybody.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how long ago was that?
It was back during just on the heels of the Revolutionary War.
It's like when 90210 decided, we're not going to make it a family show.
Right.
It's going to be actually about, we're going to focus on the teens and the high school and less on the parents.
You're almost exactly right about that. That's when that show took that turn. There's one little matchup that I am watching because when the Browns were without their tackles, that's where their season went south in a hurry. When they had terrible offensive line protection. Jack Conklin held T.J. Watt to one pressure and no sacks 2 weeks ago. Does that translate in Pittsburgh? Because I think Watt, who's had a bit of a down year, has started to come on. Like last week, he's starting to be the T.J. Watt who makes these devastating, huge plays. He turned the game against Joe Burrow. Does he take Jameis Winston out early in this game? Because I think the one thing, Dan, to your point, the Jameis Winston fun arc, like we're getting the other side of it too, where he's throwing 3+ picks in a game where early on against the Ravens, it's like those turnover-worthy plays weren't becoming turnovers. They are now. So I wonder if this goes south in Pittsburgh where they never win.
Something that also helps TJ Watt out is that they get Alex Highsmith back this week. So having your rushing partner is going to benefit you because more attention is going to be needed to be distributed along the entirety of the front and not just devoted to TJ Watt.
And Nick Herbig's been excellent too. So they've got 3 guys.
Two sound bites before we head to break. One, and I'm sure you've heard it, but we didn't get a chance to react to it. So here's Jameis Winston after his the most Jameis game ever on Monday night, talking about his need to purge through the help of the Lord. I don't know if it's God or the 3 sons, but somebody to purge pick sixes from his existence.
I know I'm better than this. I know I'm just praying for the Lord to deliver me from pick sixes.
Is it a joke or I think it's real? I think he's serious.
It's real.
And then you mentioned it. It was great sound after the Thursday night Browns Steelers game in the snow. Myles Garrett going full alpha dog against TJ Watt, who, by the way, maybe this should be my fearless prediction. You want to talk about when you give truly great athletes motivation and you put some, in fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to change my fearless prediction. So remind me, Justin. They tend to use that and create greatness as a result. Here's Myles Garrett basically going full alpha and sticking TJ Watt, of all people, in a locker when talking about who is the man in the NFL.
You speak tonight, and if so, what was said?
I mean, we spoke at the coin toss, but that's about it. Like I said, I got a lot of respect for him, a lot of respect for all the guys over there, and the edge rusher in the league, but I'm number 1. And that's from edge defender 1, edge 1 to defensive player of the year. I'm the guy. So that runs through me. There's no other person being defended as I am or schemed or planned against like I am. So this goes to show, you can throw that out the window. I'm gonna find a way.
Watt's revenge on Sunday.
God damn, I love
that. Real quick on the Jameis thing, when I heard the pick sixes, I was like, man, is he close to the record or something like that? Because he does throw a lot of them. He's not anywhere close, but that was, in my research, I learned that Brett Favre threw 32 of them.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
That would have been my guess.
He was back there vibing. You have a guess at who's number 2?
You kids are young, but Mark and I remember Brett was such a incredible quarterback to watch because he was like Jameis, but 3 times as good, but also just as reckless. So he was quite an adventure.
You had to pack that into every Favre game, that you'd get to 2 killer interceptions, but he'd also throw 4 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns too.
Yeah, I also stumbled upon Favre, and I was looking up thinking Lamar would win MVP for the 3rd time in a row, the last person to do it. And Favre had done that as well. Dan, you would have guessed that Favre was number 1. Can you guess who's number 2 on the list of career pick sixes?
Namath?
He is number 4.
Who's number 2?
Number 2 is Matthew Stafford.
Huh.
Matthew Stafford.
That's
he's
surprising.
30 of them.
And
so he is coming for the record.
Favre was the football player he most wanted to be like when he was coming up through college. So.
Namath surprises me because that's not an era where you threw the ball that much. So he
did though.
Right.
He did.
He threw like 28.
Yeah, he threw a lot. Wait, so the top 4 then is, give me that top 4.
Favre is 1, Stafford is 2, and then there's 3 is Marino, and then 4 is Namath, and then Breeze and Manning are tied at 5.
Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Hall of Fame. And then Jameis
It's also
Winston
they
is right
played
there.
long enough to rack up
Right.
those numbers too.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
not a
Yeah.
percentage. It's a raw number. I just didn't realize. So Jameis only has, I think, 14. Only 14. But I just thought he'd be closer to the record. Brett Favre.
Yeah, he's not even 30 yet though, right?
Oh my
he's
God.
he's got time.
Well, I will say one thing about Winston. Winston has 14 games with 3 picks, which is 6 more than any other player in the league since 2015. So he is prolific in the interception category.
Yes, Justin.
Jameis Winston's first pass as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer was a pick 6, and his last pass as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer was also a pick 6.
It's poetic.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was great. I guess against Justin's Titans, I think, on the first one, I believe.
And he would have had another one to close Monday night, and it actually, we'll get to it because it impacted our Fearless Prediction section. He threw one at the goal line in garbage time, and just because Jerry Jeudy had such a brilliant game and he said, "F that. I'm not letting this guy celebrate." And he did his quarterback a solid and hunted down, who was it that had the interception in the final minute there? It would have been a pick
Barton,
6.
Former Seahawk Cody Barton.
And Jeudy, no other reason other than like, oh, hell no. No, we're not getting another pick 6 and not running up the score on us. Tackled from behind the interceptor of the pass in that Barton. And otherwise, he would have had another one, which would have been, frankly, f***ing hilarious. So he finished with 3 pick 6s and 4 touchdowns and almost 500 yards. A brilliant game all the way around. Performance art. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Football season is winding down, but there's still plenty of time to get into the action on Underdog. With higher, lower pick'em entries, daily drafts, streaks, and more, there's never been a better time to start playing. And it's not just the NFL. The NBA is back. You've got NHL, college sports, so many options. So don't miss out. Just scan the QR code on your screen to download and play on the Underdog app. Or if you're not watching on YouTube, sign up with the code HTC and you can receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. Make the most of this NFL season before it's gone by playing along on Underdog. For our U.S. audience, only.
All right. Jourdan, just give it a shot. Maybe it's not as bad as you remember. The gravy.
Whoa.
No.
You know, a couple of months ago, the plan was to work with the graphics team at Underdog to cook up a video to go along with the gravy boat drop. But then I was like, they don't really know me too well yet. I feel like it's the wrong impression could be like if I had to like lay out the storyboard on that, it felt early in the relationship. So we might have to wait till next year for that. You know what I mean? Or maybe the next contract.
Yeah. I think a lot of people who are unfamiliar with the lore of the show would probably be deeply disturbed by some sort of moisture boat situation that's not actually water, it's another liquid. So I think it's just not great, man. It's just not great.
Or it's the greatest.
Right. I thought you were going to try to trick me again, so I was almost too late getting my headphones out, but I got it done.
We'll get you.
I got it done.
It's just a matter of time. Just a matter of Justin and I putting our heads together and figuring out a way to entrap you in the boat.
When I texted Justin my prediction, I was going over some notes in the rundown as well. I also put parentheses redacted theme when talking about this particular segment.
Here's my promise to you. Before the end of this season, Jourdan, we're going to get you on that boat. And the only way to get off the boat is to dive into the gravy. So you're going to have one choice or the other.
I just want the listener to know this is non-consensual. So
it's going down a weird road. All right, let's get into it. The gravy boat. Hit it, Justin.
All right, we're starting with Bills at Rams. I usually go chronological for the remaining games for the gravy boat, but this rare, interesting matchup here, I couldn't resist fishing it out.
How about
first.
that little production detail, Mark? That was good to hear.
I think there was a real mystery around Justin's process, but no longer. He's uncovered his process for us. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you very much, Justin. From the audience, thank you.
You could have seen it live if you were in the dock earlier, but I digress.
Von Miller revenge game, anybody? The Bills have been rolling, winners of 7 straight games, scoring over 30 points in their last 6. They're up to number 2 in the power rankings. Dan has them number 1 in the power rankings. Yeah. But they won't have the weather advantage this week playing at SoFi, so it'll be an interesting test against what should be a pretty desperate Rams team fighting to stay in the hunt for the NFC West title.
Oh, I don't know about that, Justin. The last couple days here in LA, I've had to usually leave the doors open of the house. I've had to close the doors, and also the aquamarine layer that coming in off the mighty Pacific.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
You know, Jourdan. The Rams at home. Can they win this game?
I think Matthew Stafford has 1 or 2 more total berserker psychopath soul snatching games left in him this season, particularly if they do make the playoffs. So in that regard, I never rule out a Matthew Stafford led team, but this offense has not been able to score. They were shut out completely by the Saints last week. They've been shut out, held without a touchdown in 9 of their games this season in the first quarter. And the slow starts are killing them. This is not going to feel like a home game either. The Bills travel extremely well. The Rams have been on a silent count in almost all of their home games this season because of some of the heavy traveling teams that they have faced. And Buffalo, it's not just a revenge game for Von Miller, who won a Super Bowl with the Rams, so you can't really call it a revenge game. He chose to sign with the Bills. But Taylor Rapp, who they never pay safeties, and he was one of them. He's having an outstanding season in Buffalo. And David Edwards, whose career ended really kind of sadly in LA because he had a pretty bad concussion, but now he's thriving with Buffalo. And the Bills are rolling in 2022. I'll never forget this, guys. In 2022, you know, right after the Rams won the Super Bowl, and they're like booze-soaked, standing on the tops of parade buses and screaming, "Run it back!" And they re-signed all their old guys, and it was gonna happen. And the Bills came into their building in 2022 and kicked the ever-living shit out of them. And
we were there.
To the point where they were so injured after that game that those injuries never quite stopped. They compounded over and over and over again, particularly along their offensive line throughout the entire season. So that memory is very fresh. They need to run the ball, be physical. But at the same time, like this could be either some crazy, freaky, weird Matthew Stafford, really like gunslinger game, or it could be a repeat of 2022.
Ironically, that was kind of a weather game because I remember, Mark, we attended that one and it was so hot. It was like 100 degrees near kickoff. There's a heat wave in LA. I'll never forget like how many people in the concourse I saw being carried out of the stadium because the way that SoFi Stadium is built, it just kind of traps heat in there.
And humidity.
Yeah, it was pretty nasty.
Wait, you saw adults being carried out of the stadium? I don't recall that.
Oh, yeah. You and I walking shoulder to shoulder, Mark, witnessing it. But you, of course, you cast that out of your mind because it didn't affect you directly. So
how many sets
That's exactly
of
how that went down.
All right. Okay, next.
Next, Bears at 49ers. You know, in another dimension of the multiverse, this is probably a pivotal game for NFC playoff seeding, but alas, The high expectations both of these teams entered the season with have not come to fruition, and the 49ers' bad luck continues here as they now have to face a team that should receive a pretty sizable Bisaccia bump. Side note, from listening to his press conferences, I really like Thomas Brown. What's he like, Jourdan?
Oh, yeah. Mark asked me a couple shows ago just like what it means when the players said they wanted to be coached harder, or like what that actually means. And I think you can't quite explain it procedurally unless you're actually there in the building. But when you hear him speak, you can kind of understand what they were seeking in that change and what personality shift they were seeking in that change. Thomas Brown is a stickler for details. He is extremely blunt. If you mess up, he will tell you, but he'll also give you an answer to fix it. He is somebody who is very honest about his own shortcomings in terms of where he still needs to learn, who he needs to put around him situationally, those types of things. You heard him bring up in his press conference without prompting. Like, he also had a hand in the late game fiasco because it was an all staff situational mismanagement. And, you know, I just think it's an interesting time because this is a tryout of sorts for him. And we know with interim head coaches, a lot of times the tryout doesn't actually result in the hire. And sometimes when it does result in the hire, we've also seen that backfire as well. The Raiders being the most recent example. But I think that, you know, the players really respond to him. And the biggest thing that I keep hearing out of that building is that Caleb Williams really likes being coached by him. And it is so important when your quarterback and the guy calling the plays and designing the plays, along with the group, the staff, actually likes working with the person and feels like they are developing and getting somewhere with that person. That's crucial, not just for a rookie quarterback, but for any quarterback. You're seeing the positives and the negatives of that relationship all across the league this season, right out in the open. And this is one of those that's skewed toward the positive now.
And I'll just add something on the San Francisco side, which is I wonder if Brock Purdy is quietly playing for his Niners future down the stretch here. Because I think coming off this season, if the Niners are indeed, it's just not going to happen this year, which I'm now in that camp as well as a lot of people, that there's going to be a lot of soul searching for Kyle Shanahan in that front office about what they want to do going forward, and dedicating a large portion of their salary cap and everything that goes with it to Purdy. Is that a foregone conclusion? I wonder if it's not. So even if they don't end up
tonight, Santa Clara?
Not good. They're not feeling good at all. So I just wonder if there's something to track there down the stretch. Next game. All right. As we finish up the gravy boat with 4 more games, that means we have 8 more teams to talk about. 6 of those 8 teams make up 6 of the 7 worst ranked teams in the HTC Power Ranking. So just a little preface here as nice we nug.
Maybe fly.
So you could turn off the show now, everybody. Way to go.
No, we haven't got to our fearless predictions yet.
No, don't. Mark's going to lose another button at the end.
Yeah.
Keep watching.
Stay tuned for Mark to unbutton. All right, Jets at Dolphins. Miami returns to the comforting warmth and safety of Hard Rock Stadium, now truly facing a do-or-die situation. And you just know the Jets would love to be the team that closes the door on the Dolphins season. I also think Mike McDaniel, he kind of needs to put a coaching masterpiece out there this week just to get the media off his back for being too cold last week. I mean, what a story is going on
We're
here.
too smart for that. We're too smart for that as football fans. You don't need to coach a masterpiece to cook up these Jets. This will not be a competitive game. The Jets will no-show the way they no-showed in Arizona a few weeks ago, and Miami will put up over 400 total yards. And I guess if that means Mike McDaniel is now a genius, people, the basics can see that way. But no, this is not the test for Miami, but it will be a win. Along those same lines, just this quote. Play this quote from Rodgers about his uncertain future.
Yeah, I mean, I just redid my house here in Jersey, so my goal was to play a few more years here, but we'll see. Yeah, I'd like to be healthy. I'd like to end on my feet, and then I'd like to play well, and I'd like, to feel like I'm wanted back. If not, that's, again, I will not be offended. I won't be upset. I'll be so thankful either way, whatever happens here. But, I got to be healthy mentally, physically, and then there's got to be interest on both sides. And if that's not the case, then I'll look at other options. But first I'll think about whether I actually want to play or not. But it usually takes a good, month to get away from it, which I'll do the first month, and then see what happens.
Mark, I just want to point out there that how quickly the power dynamic changes in our league, and Rodgers went from the toast of the town and just this god amongst men with the Jets to obviously a place of vulnerability where he is giving these type of quotes like saying, "Yeah, I'd like to be back if they'll have me," and all the reporting around the Jets is that Woody Johnson is very much ready to cut the cord. So it's just amazing how quickly things can change.
Well, the power dynamic shifts quickly when you can't play quarterback, and he's not the guy they signed up for. And he to me looks like a little bit of it is packed into the fact that I don't perceive Aaron Rodgers to be the kind of quarterback that is getting his body into the primest possible shape in the offseason. There's a lot of other stuff going on. There's a lot of other priorities, and his body looks broken down to me. And I don't know how you'd ever try to sell this and run this back again. I think the experience is over. It's gone terribly, and it's for Jets fans and you. It's a horrific nightmare based on what you thought you were getting, and you can't do this again. You're not bringing him back. Come on.
Just in fairness to Rodgers, or maybe he does really take care of himself in the offseason, but he's 41 with a torn Achilles repair.
Absolutely.
His body's just breaking down.
Does he strike you as like as someone that's like thinking about football nonstop?
Can I be real with you? Like, yes, because he's one of the greatest players who has ever lived, and I know what you're saying, but it wouldn't. Like, I don't doubt that he has, for his entire professional career, like, put the work in to be a great player. Now, is he potentially distracted in the offseason? That's certainly possible. And people are sending me the links to this Netflix show about, like,
well, that's coming out at the wrong time.
Plugged in his brain and everything. I don't, like, I'm probably not going to watch that just because I'm, as all Jets fans are, just disgruntled about how this all played out. But, yeah, he's old. And Mike, you saw it firsthand, like the throws that he was missing. He's just old now, and the accuracy has been affected in addition to the mobility. And yeah, I don't think it's a guy that you bring it back. You have to kind of turn the page. It didn't work. Just didn't work.
You're 1,000% going to watch the doc, by the way. One of my all Jets fans are, because that's what you guys do. You wallop in the misery.
Stop it.
Yeah, so
we have no choice. We just live in it. This is what we were dealt. This was our birthright. We were born into it.
My homie watched it the other last night. He texted me about it. He says it stinks. So anyway, I'll watch it to see. Real quick on the Dolphins, I do think everything we were talking about, like with Jim Harbaugh and like the identity of his team, and,
Jim,
it all like applies in the other direction with Mike McDaniel. I do think the worst characteristic of your football team can be that people perceive you as soft, whether you are or not. Like the perception part, I do think matters, because you get people on your own team saying it, like Jordan Brooks, their linebacker. You get people on the other team saying it. I think Deshaun Elliott, and then I think it was Josh Jacobs maybe on the Packers. Like, that's terrible. You do need maybe not a masterclass, but damn, Mike McDaniel, figure that out, because you can't just be soft. I'll fire any coach whose team I think is soft, because that's, like I said, the worst possible thing. So I do think his team needs to win in a certain type of way, like run the ball a lot, really beat up on Aaron Rodgers, maybe knock him out of the game, or something like that. Just like play it tough, You can't be a soft team in the NFL.
All right, next.
Las Vegas Raiders at Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
What's so funny, Mark?
I don't know. One of my favorite parts of the week is Justin transitioning from what he's having to do on his laptop or whatever to the read.
Same.
The Raiders came so close to knocking off the Chiefs last week that I actually struggled with where to place them in the power rankings. It's like they showed some real fight. They were a botched snap away from beating, one lost team. But
what do you mean you struggled? How long did you struggle for? Like how many
hours and hours. But that end of game meltdown.
Staring at that Excel sheet, like, where do I put the Las Vegas Raiders?
That end of game meltdown is sort of part of what the Antonio Pierce experience has been. So you have to factor it in when you're ranking them. Meanwhile, the Bucs are storming towards taking the NFC South crown. Coming back from the dead, it felt like a win here at home would go a long way to helping that cause.
Mike, they got the division right where they want them now. They cleared out a 3-game deficit in the blink of an eye. They still don't have the tiebreaker on Atlanta, but again, Aaron Boone, it's all in front of them.
I do. I like where the Bucs are going. Getting Mike Evans back is helpful too. I do think they can give the Falcons a push. Though, Justin, I do enjoy your optimism there, thinking that they came close to beating the Chiefs. You're assuming the kicker would have made that, and
no chance.
And in that particular game, there was no guarantee he would have hit what I think would have been 50 plus. So
no chance in hell. No, I think they got it into the 40s. They had a completion that took them around the 30 before the world exploded.
Okay, wherever it was, I don't think there was a chance in hell.
I'm gonna
that,
double check this.
What's his name? Daniel Carlson. I don't think he was hitting that either way.
He was pooping his pants. You're right.
Yeah, he wasn't gonna make that. So I enjoy, Justin. I think Raiders fans would appreciate you taking some time to figure out where to rank them, but I don't think they came very close. I think that was setting up for them to that kick to fall so far wide right or something, and we'll just be like, "Yep, the Chiefs done it again." Yeah, block something, botched hold. That there's no way that kick was going through. The Chiefs just got that type of voodoo on other teams right now. Other teams that aren't the Bills, obviously.
We're both kind of right. 3rd and 3 at the Kansas City 32 when the fumble occurred. So 49
Evans,
yards for that spot.
Just as a programming note for the listeners to keep track of too, Mike Evans did not practice Wednesday with added a calf injury to that hamstring injury he's already been dealing with. So still might play, just something to keep an eye on.
Does anybody else have a weird level of anxiety for something that doesn't really affect us in any way for his 1,000-yard streak? Because I think it's...
How in danger is it? I haven't even looked.
Hit me with an Odome Brown, Justin Graver. I think because he's missed a bunch of games and now he's banged up again.
Right.
Oh, he needs a lot. He needs a lot.
Yeah, he's
of
only
yards.
at 521 yards, so I think that's a fair concern.
Yeah, it's. Oh, he's not going to hit that. That's not getting. No. Oh boy.
Molly.
Wow.
You in danger, girl.
I'm concerned now, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, now I have anxiety. Thanks.
Next.
Next game, Saints at Giants. One of the last two games.
One thing for people that don't know, every year Mike Evans has been in the NFL. He's had at least 1,000 yards receiving. He came into the league like 11 years ago. It's incredible and one of the underrated stars of his generation. Okay, little context there, Justin.
Okay, Saints at Giants. One of two games in the gravy boat this week. The last two games here that feature both teams being in the bottom 7 of the official HTC power ranking. So you've got Drew Lock making his second start for the G-Men against a pretty bad Saints defense. It's a classic stoppable force meets movable object conundrum here. No Taysom Hill for the Saints. And if we're looking big picture, does this game matter? I mean, aside from possibly factoring in to the fate, the future of these two head coaches, like who do we care about Saints Giants?
Jourdan, 30 seconds or less. Go.
I'm going to read to you guys the words that Giants fans use to describe the Daniel Jones era in New York, according to our great colleagues at The Athletic, Charlotte Carroll and Dan Dugan, who did a survey this week. Disappointing, failure, frustrating, wasted, pathetic, doomed, pointless, delusional, tragic, mediocre, disastrous, depressing, tepid, farce, Gettleman, ugh, circus, futile, wonky, soulless, and Charlotte Carroll's personal favorite, pyrite. 2 people used it, aka Fool's Gold.
5, 4. Oh, she did it.
She nailed
Unbelievable work from the great Jourdan Rodrigue, a legend. Taysom Hill out for the year, obviously, with that ACL and multiple other knee issues. That sucks. Hitting the under. All right. Last one. Jaguars at Titans. Trevor Lawrence placed on IR after the nasty concussion he suffered last week. Aziz El-Shire suspended 3 games for that hit. And now Lawrence is also having surgery on his shoulder, so he is out for the season. Look, Doug Peterson, essentially a dead man walking. And while the Titans are a bad football team, no denying that, they just got embarrassed last week by Washington. Look, let's be real. Will Levis has quietly put together 4 consecutive good games, and I kind of feel like Tennessee has no excuse to not go win this game at home against a division rival that might have given up on the season. Here's a quote from Aziz Al-Shire on social media. All caps. If you want me to be your villain, I'll be your villain. Middle finger emoji. See you soon. And then a Joker emoji. All right, that's one way to take. That's one way. I like that he's leaning into it. Like, he understands. Sure. You know, I think that if I could be fair here, I think that's more directed at the verbal abuse and online abuse he's been receiving, not so much the situation. Well, and my read, what though, and his religion too. I think
he's getting killed for like a lot of stuff that it does not have to do with football.
Yeah. So obviously
Wow,
it's an
we're really
ugly situation all around. But yeah, that was his post this week.
Also because he's a headhunter that just ended Trevor Lawrence's season.
Well, that's where it
let's
started.
let's not put him in the
No.
innocent Hall
I'm
of Fame
simply
here.
saying I'm not saying that was a great situation to begin with. It
Yes.
was terrible. But I'm just saying my read of his post specifically, which was what was brought up on the show, was that to me felt more directed at what he received as a reaction and pulling at other variables of his life other than the hit.
Well, and Dan, to your point, though, I do think it took a turn where suddenly you got
I'm
like
sure it
Tom
does.
Brady and everyone else slowly starting to blame Trevor Lawrence and not look at it for what it looked to the eye. It just took that natural turn where it's like we've got to come out from another angle, which
It
is
was
slightly
wild
tedious.
that Tom Brady blamed Trevor. That was wild to me. That was a wild
QB
thing.
on QB violence. Mark, your Aziz Al-Shaair jersey I'm going to get you for Christmas. Medium? Is that the size to get?
Medium, and I'll wear it all around
Schmedium.
town.
Medium.
No, medium.
All right.
No, medium.
We Jourdan has a press conference. Oh no, she has a meeting with the general manager. How about that?
It's an interview. It's not a meeting. We're not discussing.
It's a general
We're not
meeting.
discussing the economy. I will be interviewing him.
You guys are discussing like there's missing inventory, like paper clips and highlighters have been taken from the.
No, it's more like why
Rams
did you
headquarters.
pay $51 million to a player who you are not playing, who is healthy? That's more the nature of the conversation.
That's what a journalist does. Those are the hard questions. Who's that player?
Jonah Jackson.
Oh my God. And you know what? Les might not like the question, but goddamn, he'll respect it.
He handles it. He handles stuff pretty well, generally speaking, general managerially speaking. So
Okay, well, make sure you tell Les that the Heed the Call guys said hi, because we're just trying to get our names out there in the discourse, you know. So we're at the number 1 for everyone. It's Spotify and 25. You know what I mean?
deal. You're number 2 behind my sleep podcast.
Well, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Certainly listens.
Jourdan jumps off now, and we'll take it to the finish line without her. See ya, Jay.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Jourdan.
All right, let's take a break, and we will hit our Money Mike portion of the program and our fearless predictions. Stay right there. You may have heard by now that Heed the Call with Dan Hanzus and Marc Sessler is on Underdog, so why not start playing on Underdog today? There are NFL and college football discounts dropping every week, so don't miss out. Download and play on the Underdog app, sign up with the code HTC, and receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Make the most of this NFL season by playing along on Underdog for our U.S. audience only. We're back. Oh, look at this. Now, this is a first. We got
It is.
Danny Boy. We got the Cess Dog. We got Money Mike Dugar. It's a boys' night in. Buckle up. All right. Let's check in on Money Mike and how his week 13 Greg Olson three-legged parlay went. Mike? Oh, Justin, what do we got?
We had Pittsburgh +3. That's a hit.
Bang.
But we also had Baltimore -3 and Cleveland +5.5.
Oh.
Those did not hit.
No.
And the Cleveland one was, the pick six.
So
Cleveland was so brutal.
Yep,
Cleveland with the ball down 2 in the final minutes.
I think down 8, right? Or I forget.
Yes, but that was after the pick six. They were driving down
talking
2 with a field
before-
goal chance to win it.
close.
And
Oh,
Jameis
to win.
threw the
Before
pick
the
six.
second pick six, it seemed destined that Cleveland would end the ball with the ball in their hands, and somehow they don't even cover. My God.
But see, the third interception, if Njoku if he just doesn't throw that, they still cover.
Right.
Right.
that's
So
tough.
that hurt. And then Justin Tucker just had no regard for Money Mike this week. He was like -3. I'll show you -3. I'm gonna miss 3 kicks.
Yeah,
That's
that is
yeah.
rough, dude. All right, but that can't save you from the punishment, which of course your favorite artist, the singer-songwriter, soft rock legend, Sting, an artist you adore.
I love Sting. I love Sting. It was such a frustrating week because when I got to New York, I was looking at parlays and stuff, because they have all those out there. And then, I was sharing some with my fellow degenerates in the degenerate group chat that we have. And when I got out there, it was cash. There were 2 parlays that were cash. One of them was a 5-leg. So I had a good weekend, but not here.
Is your text thread with those guys titled Degeneration X? Because that would be good.
Oh, that would be good. No, it's titled. I think it's titled. Quote, "It's a hobby," and it has the group chat picture is the Michael Jordan with the sunglasses.
Where's Mike? Oh, he's down in Atlantic City. Oh, you might need to get up there. The Eastern Conference Finals are on.
Oh, man,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got this week? You got an Olsen 3-leg?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I do. Let's go with some players this week because teams having a rough one. Let's take Amon-Ra St. Brown over 71.5 receiving yards in the Thursday nighter against the Packers. We'll take Saquon Barkley at least 110 scrimmage yards in the game against the Panthers, and then we'll take Baker Mayfield over 245.5 passing yards against the Raiders. Great. G-Reg 7th Floor Boys 3-legger.
Like that.
Mike Dugar and the 7th Floor crew.
Amon-Ra St. Brown has caught 66 of his last 68 targets, so I think that's a solid.
And I think someone threw some shade at him on the Packers. I think that would help. I think it was Xavier McKinney who was just like, "We ain't worried about you," which is Godspeed. Yeah, I mean he's just one of those he's one of those. I think he can name all the receivers drafted ahead of him type of guys.
Yes, he can.
Yes,
absolutely can.
So I think those little slights, like you mentioned, giving a great player motivation.
Yes. Great transition into our fearless predictions for Week 14. Before we share them, let's go over our Week 13 predictions and see how they did. Starting, Justin, with Money Mike, a non-QB who has not had a 3+ TD game in 2024, will score 3+ TDs. Oh, was it close?
Yes, the final pass that Jameis threw that got picked was to David Njoku, who would have had his 3rd touchdown. That was it. The last pass. Oh my, I'm pissed.
Man, Mark, I love that Njoku. Yes, he is a bit of a roller coaster.
Well, he is, because he's frustrating and then he's dazzling. A little bit of both.
He's like 75% of the time, he's like maybe the best tight end in football and a total game record. And then like the other 25%, he's basically a man that you could just call Stone Hans.
Yeah, I go 65-35, but yeah.
Yeah.
Terry McLaurin also had 2 touchdowns. Couldn't get a 3rd.
And then they got in the red zone as well.
Terry?
I think someone else scored. Yeah.
Terry,
so,
are you okay?
I was right there, man. I think the Jameis pick impacted my prediction and Mark's, I believe.
Yes.
All in one
absolutely.
throw.
Yep.
Let's go to that, Mark. One NFL defense and special teams unit will score 3 touchdowns.
It came so close. We've
so
discussed
close.
it, but
And again, that was like you got to live with the good and the bad, right, Mark? Because Jerry Jeudy is all of a sudden a key part of the Cleveland future after an amazing breakout game against his old team. But he also, just for the hell no of it, hunted down Barton on that last Jameis pick 6.
Right, and the dumbest element to this is that you and the group willingly tried to get me down to 2 touchdowns.
We did.
And for some reason, in an act of foolish bravado, suggested no, it will be 3, and then I would have won. So,
Gravedigger nailed his. We get the highest total game score of the season this week. Hell yeah! You almost had 2, right?
Pittsburgh Cincinnati was at 82, and then Denver Cleveland was in the 70s. The highest score before this game was 79.
Near pick 6 and the Njoku drop almost affected 3 predictions because wouldn't that have made it?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Jourdan, we get a coach or play caller changed by show taping next week. Who?
Matt Eberflus.
Yeah.
Out.
Well done, Jourdan.
And he's the play caller too, right? That's a double whammy.
Double whammy.
Yeah, and by the way, I am now where Justin Tucker is, where I just go out on the field and I don't feel myself anymore. I have no feel for the game anymore. Blowout week in the NFL, 5 games decided by 13 points or more. And let me just say, Jourdan gave me shit for saying 13 instead of 14. I didn't even come close to this. I think
There
maybe
were 3.
There were 3. And also, someone sent me a tweet that this week had the most games that were decided, closely decided. So I had it on the wrong side of it. So I'll spin it moving forward before we sign off. So, Mike, to your point, you mentioned, giving great players motivation. TJ Watt against the Browns, multiple sacks and at least one he plays a role in a turnover in the game. And I'm sure it will lead to him having some spicy things to say about where he stands in the pecking order. But
so he helps generate a turnover. He doesn't have to recover. Okay,
so
that's cool. That's TJ Watt.
Multiple sacks and generates a turnover. TJ Watt against the Browns. What do you got, Mark?
I have that two games will go to overtime this week, which has not happened, I believe, in a week this season. Although I've not researched that, but I can tell by your look that you don't love what I've done there. But I think it's tough to do. I mean, we'll see.
2 overtime games.
Yeah,
it's not. I guess it doesn't light up my Christmas tree. But I'm not going to judge.
I'm trying to grind out a couple victories here before this thing comes to a close.
Mike.
Yeah, I don't think we've had 2. I might look that up. Or maybe
We
Justin
might have had 1 week with
2 overtime games. Pinch me.
I think the Titans went into the Titans went. Oh, they did have 2. The Rams and Seahawks went into overtime. I think the same week the Patriots and Titans went into overtime. I believe that was
so
week 9.
it's humanly possible.
Yes.
To your credit, there's less games this week, so
definitely to my credit.
You did it.
What was my
my
prediction?
spine is tingling.
Okay, my week. I'm going bold. Again. Let's go. The 5 QBs. This was some research I was doing on Jay Herbo and Ladd McConkey. So, in honor of the 2020 draft, the 5 QBs from that draft will combine for at least 1,225 passing yards. So that's Hurts, Tua, Burrow, Herbo, and J Love. They've only hit that number once this year, and I think it was one of those weeks that I think Burrow had like 400 by himself. So yeah, I think they'll hit at least 1,225 this week.
Mike's always fun. In honor of Christmas, I like that. And Justin, what is Jordan's in absentia?
Jordan's, we get at least 1 upset of a single-digit power ranked team by a double-digit power ranked team.
Okay, so what teams would those be?
So we do have 2 top 10 matchups, TNF tonight, and then Chargers Chiefs, but the non-top 10 matchups would be Vikings could lose to the Falcons, Eagles could lose to the Panthers, Steelers could lose to the Browns, Rams could beat the Bills, and I believe that's it. Yes.
All right. And a straight win?
A straight win.
Money line.
1. Okay.
Money.
All right, Justin, close it out.
Mine, Dan, we're sort of gonna be lock bros again this week because mine was gonna be at least 1 player has 3 or more sacks. So not necessarily lock bros,
right.
But like if TJ Watt has 3 sacks, we both win this. Well, he has to.
One question: what if TJ Watt has 1.5 sacks?
That counts for you, but not for me.
Okay.
Because that's
throw up the standings again, because I know I'm buried in last, but I want to see because there's a trophy involved here. We got to probably get going on the production of the trophy, Justin, as we're in December.
True.
So and we'll count. This goes through the playoffs. Yeah, it should, right?
Yeah,
why not?
Yeah. We'll go through the playoffs as we head into the second week of December. Michael-Shawn Dugar and the Gravedigger are tied atop the standings at 5 and 8. Which is pretty good for a fearless prediction.
It really is.
Jourdan at 4 and 9, Sestog at 3 and 10, and Zuzzer. By the way, I think I was 2 and 1 at one point.
You were, and you were also throwing a lot of shade at myself and others for
you're right.
Not treating the contest in the way that you wanted. But then look at you now.
I'm a disgrace.
Losing streak.
I'm 2 and 11, but I am treating the contest with dignity, Mark, which is. Sometimes I wasn't sure if you were even doing that. But now, for instance, with your pick this week as an example, like you're trying to bank wins now. I
really am, because I think if I move to 4 and 10 and we can have a slight complaint about the, whatever I cooked up this week, no one's going to remember that when I'm 4.
No, nobody will. You're right.
It's the record.
So
what it's worth, I fact checked the overtime games that week. That week 9 week, there were 3 overtime games.
Oh,
that week.
That's not helping my case.
So not even something that has not even unprecedented. So less than a week that's already happened. Mark?
Yes,
right.
It was the 2 that I mentioned, and then the Bucs and Chiefs also went overtime that week and on Monday Night Football. So
be as displeased with me as you wish, and watch how little I care.
You don't want to go up to 3?
No, I'm not doing. Okay. That's what I did last week, and I'm not doing.
No, this week it's the other direction.
No,
trying to get you to.
It's no direction.
Okay,
planted.
All right, 2. Fair enough, Mark. All right, thanks to everybody for watching and listening. We will be back, Mark and I, tonight, Thursday night, recapping the great Thursday night showdown between the Lions and Packers. Reminder, I'll be on Patreon in the live chat. I don't know where Sessler will be. I mean, he should be there too, but it's up to him ultimately whether he wants to reach out to the fan base or not. I don't know. Mark?
I could be convinced. I'm not against it. I just didn't know. I didn't hear about it until you mentioned it,
So jump on the Patreon, patreon.com/heedthecall, where the live chat will be going on during this game, and we'll have some fun over there. And then Friday morning draft Patreon for week 14, and then Sunday night the flagship show. Mike, thank you so much, buddy. And maybe I don't even know, like Seahawks, maybe they go to the New York next year. Maybe we can get Joe's. Because this street pizza you speak of, it sounds like some hustler that bought some Elios at the local bodega and just threw it in a microwave and then told the guy from Seattle, yep, this is New York pizza.
Well, I did like it. It was the New York style is the thin, right? That's the.
Not really. I mean, it's not like thin crust. No, it's New York style slice. It's not thin crust actually.
That was my first time eating pizza in New York at all. So
shit.
Yeah.
A little bit of Michael Scott, going to Sbarro vibe here. We need to rectify.
Okay,
this.
It wasn't that bad. It was
Sbarro.
What I've learned about going to New York is I just got to go a day earlier. That's what I got to do. Trying to get there just a day before the game is just trying to pack too much in there. So yes, hopefully they go back next year to play the Giants or something.
Yeah, I hope so too. All right, till next time. Heed the call.